So hi everyone and welcome to the first episode of What Would Bigfan Do? I'm your host Bigfan. So the idea behind the show, as I mentioned earlier in my first video, was that I'll be sharing some reps with you. Just reps from all the old days. So this is 2011, 2012 when I first started playing, and I'll go all the way from then till some of my most recent reps. Essentially we can see the growth. I figured this would be nice for some of the newer players in the game, just to see how things develop and just to see that, you know what, it takes a bit of time, but Voodoo can still be a fun game, can still be a unique game. So this first trip was played back on iCup back in 2011, 2012, one of my earlier ones, as a TVZ on a map that's called Python. Now if you take a look at the map, and I'll just show it to you in just the beginning, there's a Python in the middle there. And there's a couple spawn locations, so I'm the red player, this is Golden Phoenix, spawning right over here. There's another spawn that's right across. There's the one that my opponent spawned, which is the Blue Zerg Psych Hook up here. And there's one fourth one, which is just over here. So you can see these two here are close by air. Just like these two are close by air. So this is a pretty nice spawning location. I probably would have preferred he spawned here just because of the longer distance. But what are you gonna do? So let's take a look and see. Now one other thing I do want to mention before we go further is, since this was before RM came out, this is how we used to play. Essentially there was no widescreen, so you can see the sidebars there, the black bars. Okay, let's continue. So nothing too crazy right now, just the opening. I'm just getting a depot. It looks like it's an extremely late depot because I'm starting to already float quite a bit. Not even halfway through. My opponents are getting a gas, but he has his first overload, so it must have been an overpool. A little bit of an idle worker, and supply blocked, 200. Okay, well, a gas. So it's more than likely some kind of factory. Unless I was planning to get an academy to go for some kind of stim or range. I honestly don't remember. This is so far back. I think one thing that a lot of people forget nowadays is a lot of the players who, when they first start, you're starting to learn the game, you're starting to see what works and what doesn't. So sometimes, you're experimenting, you're doing odd things, and then you slowly change your game based on what works and what doesn't. And at each level, there's different strats that work, or, different kinds of cheese, so on and so forth. So my opponent looks like he's getting an expansion. Okay, and some Zergon, but no gas just yet. I'm just getting my racks, which still hasn't finished building yet, but overall everything's okay. We both haven't scouted each other, because he's only scouted this location, and his overlord is heading down to the other location here. I'm personally still scanning around. You can kind of see I even sent the worker to the wrong location on the minimap. Okay, so first couple of Zergons are out. I'm just getting my next depot. Could have probably gotten it just a bit slightly earlier. But this is a pretty big opening as well, especially with no workers. So typically I would say the racks being up here, and then a depot here, something along those lines would probably be a much better opening. You kind of see I was pretty bad at walling at the time. And at this point, single marine, 4 Zerglings, you can kind of tell this is a bad thing. I'm also getting my first factory as well. So SCV as a buffer. Let's see. So this is pretty good, but the damage is spread out. So that means the next wave will probably end up likely killing these two. Yeah, if he targets. Yep. So, I mean, the game is just started. My opponent's already floating 600 minerals. And I've already lost my whole army. Is he droning? No, looks like he's still making Zerglings and no gas just yet. On the other hand, I'm just trying to defend for my ranger's little shield. I'm also getting an academy. So at this point in time, it looks like I finally found my opponent after searching, but you can take a look. That's a lot of Zerglings to have in your base. So I mean, this market is pretty simple. Just when you're, it's nothing too crazy fancy, but when you find that your the HP of your units are getting really low, you can always pull them away, and that essentially, if the AI is still fixated on the unit, that'll allow your other units to kind of get a couple of hits in. So just again, barely alive, nothing too crazy just yet. But it looks like there's another big wave coming in, and there's just more and more Zerglings at this point. I just have a single Vulture, and I'm hearing about to pop out, and we're both floating quite a bit. And this is, you know what, this is still the early game, you know, with 5 minutes in. It's been non-stop for the last probably about a minute and a half. Yeah. So I'm just trying my best to keep this one Vulture alive, but I believe, so there is like a pretty cool micro you could do with Vultures called Patrol Micro, where you patrol towards your opponent and then you pull back at the last minute, and essentially this causes the Vultures to hit without losing acceleration. Unfortunately, it looks like I didn't actually know about this at the time, because this would have made life a lot easier. So I'm trying to defend essentially slow Vultures with slow Lings against slow Lings using just SCP for buffers. But even then, I mean, it seems to be working somewhat, although we're both still floating. I'm starting to lose workers now, which is not a good thing. You can also see I'm also pausing as well. Still about 10 Zerglings, 11 Zerglings in the base. A single Vulture. So one thing I could have done here is if I actually routed all my workers to the gas, I could have actually, and then attacked move. That would have had a better spread against the Zerglings. Would probably help me out a bit. But I mean, at this point in time, you know, I've helped myself quite a bit against. I've done quite well against the Zerglings, but I'm losing a lot of workers now. It's a bit too much. But obviously it depends a lot on what my opponent is doing. So 14 kills, 15 kills, which is quite a bit. More Zerglings streaming in. And my opponent is still making nothing but Zerglings, no gas just yet. So just more Zerglings, but I mean at this point in time, you know, just throwing these Zerglings away, especially when you see this, even though he can still just walk, and it's just a bad idea. He's supposed to retain them. Likewise, I perhaps have just sent my workers away and left maybe about 2 of them or so, just repaired a couple of Vultures. Okay, that's not too bad. Okay, it looks like he's transitioning out now. He's actually making some drones, which is good for him. Still have a single Zergling here. So I'm gonna speed up just a bit here for you guys, because it doesn't look like as much gonna be happening for a while, because my opponent looks like he's droning up. Looks like he's moving to take a third. On the other hand, I'm just building up my worker count up again. I'm essentially at 11 workers, 8.5 minutes in. That's pretty bad. I mean, my opponent is on 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then there's the 3 on gas. He's about 15 workers. So it's okay. Slow Vultures. I do have a lot of gas though, so I think what would have been a good idea now is just to get 2 racks right away. Well, I would have to rebuild one anyways. Maybe get a machine shop add in a couple of mines, or if not, at least go for speed. Something that'll allow me to actually get into the Zerg base. So I'm adding that to the barracks right now. Idle worker. Moving in, but he does spot this, so he actually ends up pulling them back. Now this is a bit overkill, because as long as you park these near onto the ramp or close to it, the vultures can't just run in, so they're going to be taking a lot of shots from both Sunkens. And don't forget about the missed chance that Broodor has as well. Okay, some more racks. The third is done. So the money's gotten a lot better. You can kind of see we both used up our banks. He's also getting a spire as well. But looks like I guess he was supply blocked. Looks like the vultures are scouting around. Now keep in mind, when I first started playing, I would usually typically join any game I could find, because you know, a lot of one of the biggest problems at the time was port forwarding as well, especially on IC Cup. So if you didn't ever port forward, you wouldn't be able to actually make any games. And it's more than likely this was one of the games I ended up joining. So this was a game that Psychook and himself ended up making an IC Cup, and I ended up joining. Supply blocked. So after that opening, looks like nothing too crazy has taken place so far, aside from that back and forth in my maze. So it looks like there's 5 mutas popping out. And this is a pretty good idea, just chase away the vultures. Although I could probably spread them out a bit better. Okay, and eBay. Now, a lot of Zergs nowadays will go for the Spire. So this EV is obviously kind of late, but considering the bad eco early on, the back and forth, so I guess it's understandable. Looks like he's still making mirrors, which makes sense. He has his third base up as well. Probably should consider mining the gas over getting minerals, just because this is the rare resource in the game. You know, every base has a lot of minerals, but you only have so much gas as well. Do we get 5,000? Yeah. But on the bright side, at least he's droning right now, which is great. I start making workers at this point, making some turrets. So it looks like I lost a signal. Okay, so he lost 2 mutas, 3 mutas. Okay, so I mean, when he lost the 1 muta for the tank, that was probably worth it. But you know, losing 3 mutas, it kind of depends on who you ask. Take a look and see what more. Okay, it looks like I finally scouted this base here. Sending another vulture down here just to see what other bases he's taken. Now it's quite like he doesn't know. Yeah, he also can't see up to here, so he probably doesn't know I scouted yet, but he probably assumes so. So, and considering there is some kind of there is a bit of a distance. Let's make a couple of Sunkens. Couple turrets around the base. So one of the scary things that if any of the new players watching this have watched some Brood War pro games, one of the things you'll find is Muta Mike is pretty scared to be up against, especially when you play a competent player. I mean, my opponent doesn't look like he knows how to stack mutas, which is why they're essentially all over the place. And if you're wondering what stacked mutas are, you basically group the mutas with a faraway overlord. And what ends up happening is that they clump together, so it's hard to kill them. And when they fire off all as a single unit. So this also makes things a little easier. But mutas were still pretty strong, and in vanilla StarCraft, when there was no medic, mutas I believe was an overpowered strategy. I honestly don't remember those. This was a long time ago as well. So it looks like I'm making my first move out. Quite a bit of Medreans, maybe a group and a half, 4 medics, 3 tanks, and a vulture. Pretty good. I've landed my racks again, which is great, so I can't run any more units in. I'm still making some units, but it looks like I'm supply blocked again. I should probably make two supplies at this point, just because you can kind of see how much supply there is. It's literally 4 supply, 6 supply there. You typically get 8 for each one, and between 2 rounds that's essentially 12. So it barely make about 1.5 times or so. So this is pretty good. He's actually getting upgrades, but I believe mine will finish a lot faster. Okay, so this is a pretty decent position. My tanks are covered from both sides, but this is not what you want to do as a Zerg. You don't want to run your unit single file into such an entrenched position, especially when there's a lot of chokes basically, and he's essentially running workers into Marines. Kind of see it, they just evaporate. Look at the supply difference of how much fast that's shrinking. See, just outside the sunken range. What's my opponent doing? Looks like he's just getting more units. Okay, an Ultra Scrabbling, that's great. He probably should get a Defiler mount as well. After all, we all know that Defilers are OP. That's obviously a joke, guys. So it looks like he's gonna lose his 3rd. As for myself, I'm starting to float quite a bit. We both are right now. And I'm starting to slowly dry out, so I'll be getting an expansion soon. Hopefully. So Ultra's Cavern, Hatchery, great. Oh, a Defilement. Okay, and Consume. This is pretty great. Ultras, nothing. So at this point in time, probably should have added a couple more racks, get a faster expansion, and likely be a little more aggressive. But the thing is, I even have a comsat. You can see, guys, I don't even have a single comsat, so I have no clue what he's doing in his base. Look at his vision. You can see I have no clue. I'm just checking out what it looks like for other expansions and consolidating my whole army. But right now I have no clue what he's doing. For all I know, he might be planning to drop me and I wouldn't even know it. Especially in the TVZ match, and when you go to the late game or even in the early game where you're trying to find out what your opponent is doing, comsats, scans are extremely vital because you don't know if they can lurk, you don't know if they go mutas. Yeah. Now he does have defilers. Do I have science vessel? I don't even think I have a starport. Yeah, you can see I don't even have a single starport. I am getting expansion, which is great, but without having science vessels to irradiate the defilers, while this army is pretty good, it's gonna get swarmed very shortly. or more than likely, especially if I aggro his units, or he moves them. And see, there's the first swarm. Pulling back is not bad. There's a second one. Does he have more energy? There's the third one. You kind of see, essentially. There's the fourth one. Does he have any more? I mean, my whole arm completely gone. He's up by about 26 supply. What is he making? More Zerglings. His upgrades are done, or being worked on. He's on 3-1. I guess 1-3 in this case. And 1-1 for his Zerglings. I don't think he got crack. Doesn't look like it. No, he definitely has crack. Or at least looks like it. Now, even though there is a wall here, keep in mind this is not Zergling tight. Zerglings will run from here and here. This will just keep out the ultras, but this, between the splash as the fact that I can't kill them under the swarm that is without splash or fire bats or anything along those lines, this is essentially over at this point. I don't even have an army. I'm floating a lot. And yeah, GG. So let's take a look and see. Let's take a look and see some of the stats, but those are always interesting to see. So, I mean, 120, 138 is pretty okay, not a big deal. What about the resources? That's something to tell the picture. So you can see he actually spent twice as much as I did. Had almost twice as much the gas as well. I had a little more than twice the gas. So, I mean, this was a pretty short rep. Figured short and sweet for the first time, just to see the reception, see what you guys, if you guys like this or if you prefer some of the newer reps. I don't mind doing both. The game itself, aside from the opening, was okay basically. That the Vulture versus Zergling, I thought was a pretty interesting micro battle, which is why I chose this start, because I saw that. I haven't personally watched the game before, the whole game before, so I didn't actually know if I would win the game or Psychook would win it. But you know what? I think it was. The idea was to essentially show some of our newer players that this is what you typically will have at the start. Where you'll be flowing a lot of money, even when you're one basing, you'll make mistakes. You know, you won't do any of the micro tricks. There's a lot of things you can do in Brood War to elevate yourself. And I'm personally a micro-oriented player. So for me, I always prefer to micro my units sometimes over macro, which is why also why my macro is bad. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the first episode. Let me know in the comments how I did, you know, any kind of feedback. Maybe my voice wasn't clear, maybe it was too low, too high. What about the music or the sound, you know, the unit sounds? If you think anything needs to be changed, you know, increase, decrease, let me know. I'm always open to feedback. I haven't decided yet how I'm going to be releasing these, but I figure at least one, maybe twice a week, because I do have a lot of reps. I've saved pretty much most of my reps since the early days. So there's a lot of reps I still remember that I figured would be fun to actually watch together. Yeah, so thanks again for tuning in, and hope you guys will join me for the next video.